Professor Weber is at Poznan University of Technology in Poland at Faculty of Engineering Management. His research areas on mathematics, operational research, finance, economics, optimization and control, neuro, bio and earth science, medicine, and so on. He received diploma and doctorate in mathematics and economics, business administration at ICAME and habilitation at TU in Germany. And he has different affiliations at many universities of Germany and Australia, Portugal, Indonesia, and Turkey, so on. Professor Weber has supervised and co-supervised many master and PhD students, authored and co-authored numerous books, spatial issues and articles, and given many presentations from a great diversity of subject areas on theory, methods, and practice. And also he has been a member of many international editorial boards and award books. He participated at and was in charge of numerous research projects and received various recognition and awards by students, universities, conference and scientific organizations, nationally and internationally. And I also invite Professor Necati Özdemir to chair the plenary talk. Yes, please, Professor.
Yes, welcome to all participants and welcome to Professor Willy. Willy, he's, as far as I know, he's very international man. He's very social and collaboration to each other very easily. He was used to work in Turkey for a long time, Middle East University, as far as I know. And that time, some times ago, we met with him and he was also support some collaboration work as well. We are, I hope we can start his speech, and if Willy is ready, you can start, Willy, and switch on your microphone, please, and you can on the Zoom program, you please switch on the microphone.
So
yes,
okay,
yes, Willy, please start now.
Friends?
Now
sorry,
it's okay. Please start. Yes, now we hear you.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, please. Yes.
Professor Necati, can you see my slides now?
Yes, I am here, and we can see you on slide as well. So
okay,
it's
that's
okay.
right. So I would first of all thank you very much. So I'm very happy to be in Turkey. I'm very happy to be in one of my home countries. I'm very happy to be in Balıkesir. I'm very happy to be in one of my hometowns. And I'm very happy to see my best friends. So it's good in life to have best friends. And I'm very grateful to the best friends in Balıkesir who helped me always. Balıkesir friends are excellent friends, and I owe them a lot. And I would like to thank particularly Professor Necati, Professor Ramazan, and also the friends in Portugal and in Ankara, the other conference chairs. So thanks for your great hospitality. I'm very happy to be close to you, to be close to Firat Hocam and Ibrahim Hocam, and all those that were always very, very kind and supportive to me. And particularly my friends and best friends from Balıkesir supported me always. They gave me great honor. I'm very happy to be in the editorial board of your prestigious journal, which is now very famous. And you invited me from the beginning. And that now I am close to you with a keynote lecture makes me very humble and very thankful and very grateful. And I would like to use the chance to also say I was a session chair at lunchtime, before lunch, and there was some overlap with another duty I had, but I could not change the overlap so quickly. So I'm sorry for the inconvenience, and thank Professor Ramazan for chairing the session, and I try to help at the end as well. Okay, now this presentation is due to a study which we did in Poland with Greek friends. You know, I work very closely with Turkish friends. Most of my collaborators are from Turkey, but also have friends in Poland and in Greece, for example, and in Iran and other places. And that presentation now was recently accepted in a good journal. Some of you know it's called European Journal of Operational Research, and it's a big honor to share it with you. Actually, it's finance and it's optimal control. I know Professor Necati and Professor Ramazan belong to the leading experts in optimal control theory in Turkey. So I'm very happy to present that study with my friends in optimal control, and it's the area of pension funds. So pension funds is a very important and subject in financial mathematics. And the study was made with my Greek friends, Ioannis and Athanasios, and my Polish friends, Marek, Krzysztof, and Lukasz. Voltaire says, uncertainty is an uncomfortable position, but certainty is an absurd one. So to assume there is a certainty, I think it's a little misleading or very much misleading. And Kendo says, life's most precious gift is uncertainty. Because of uncertainty, we spend efforts. Because of uncertainty, we develop the notion of confidence. If there was a certainty, why do we need confidence? Confidence is necessary and trust is necessary in an environment where there's also uncertainty. And Asimov says, uncertainty that comes from knowledge is different from uncertainty that comes from ignorance. How to decide when we face uncertainty concerning the exact stochastic model that describes the evolution of the system under investigation? Optimal control of pension funds. As you know, dear friends, in some nations, little different from Turkey, the age pyramid stands top down. There are few young people and quite a number of old people. So how can that work? How can pension fund systems work in such difficult circumstances? So saving the retirement, maybe I can put this down, saving the retirement, like any form of long-term savings, involves varied risks. The problem of optimal management of asset accumulated in pension funds under risk and uncertainty is a matter of fundamental importance, both in the theoretical and practical dimensions. As you know, a pension fund is a little similar, but not the same, like an insurance. It's something where some pay in and others get it out. And it's very important now, and little similar to insurances, like life insurances, for securing the age. But it goes from generation to generation, and it has to function. That's why we need to get involved by our own activity. It cannot be the state or the employer alone. That's why it becomes a matter of what we call portfolio optimization. The wealth is to be invested over a long period of time, usually 20 to 40 years, in order to provide its members with retirement benefits. There are two basically different paradigms, different approaches. One is called defined contribution plan, and the other one is called defined benefit plan. So the issue is, what is uncertain? What do we fix? Do we fix what later is being paid as pension funds? So if the later payout is already defined now, then it's considered given. And arrangements now, according to what has to be paid, has to be adjusted. Or the other way around, that now we decide about the pension fund payments, contributions, and later the cake is shared. So these are the two different things. Fixing what happens later and adjusting now, or adjusting now means the contributions and later defining the bounty, defining the pension funds benefits. So these are the basically two different approaches. So we have, according to the decision to the contributions plan and according to the benefits. So these are, as I already tried to explain, the very different approaches which we can have. And we are basically focusing on the DC, on the contribution side. I hope it's a little bit clear. It means whenever we have such a problem, the problem as a mathematical problem is not given. First of all, we have to make a basic decisions how we want to design it. We want to design it so that now the decisions about payments are made, fixed, so to speak, and later, whatever has been accumulated, including activity on the market of finance, will be distributed, or now we fix what later people will get, including us, and then now everything has to be decided flexibly to reach the goal of later payout. Okay, since success of a DC plan crucially depends on the effective investment of the available funds due to contributions, the management of the function reduces an optimal portfolio selection. As you know, dear friends, if you work in optimal control and it's in finance, it often breaks down to portfolio selection. That's the point. And this has to be made here as well. And you can imagine that when it comes to the portfolio, the different levels, the different degrees of uncertainty, of risk are very important. Because from human to human, we have a different affinity towards risk. And we pay attention to the stochastic character of the problem at hand. Because life is very stochastic, especially when it comes to financial and economic issues. And then the human factor comes into play. And our life expectancy. So we don't know, God knows, we don't know how long we will live. So all of these issues are very important and have to be taken into account and make our decision a very, very stochastic one. And effects and efforts have been undertaken by stochastic control techniques and in pension fund systems by people like these. So this was deep stuff, investigations that have been undertaken in the past. And now in some countries, especially where there are few young people and many elderly people, the rules and regulations have been sophisticated, and every human has to make an effort to take responsibility for their own life. That means to have a portfolio about the pension fund. And so now there are different, basically different kinds of products. So, and the first one is called inflation index. So an inflation index is kind of a security in order to respond to one big factor of uncertainty, which is inflation. If we say inflation does not matter, is a very risky approach, because as we know, in Turkey we know it, in Germany, in Poland, in every nation we know there's inflation, and we cannot suppress inflation. And one way to get inflation in is first to tell about inflation indices. So inflation indices is a dynamic which is close to let me say, a deterministic one, but not completely. Because we have here a Brownian motion. So we take into account a very soft form of uncertainty, no jumps here, but diffusion. And that means we have this kind of a, almost mean inverting process with some diffusion, which describes us about the stochastic dynamics of an inflation index. And you see, since many of you are mathematicians, we have here a logarithmic derivative, a stochastic logarithmic derivative with a drift and a diffusion. So this is here the point. And what we do is to embed that inflation dynamics into a dynamics of a bond. And these kind of bonds are being called, as you see here, zero coupon bonds. So these are bonds. Usually we think of bonds to be risk-free. That's what we think. When we take our money to the İşbankası or to any bank in Turkey or in another country, we assume it's very deterministic, it's very risk-free. But the so-called risk coupon bonds, with inclusion of inflation, it's not like this. And we have here T and capital T. So capital T, the maturity time, also plays a role. It means what is our time horizon? And we embed our inflation process. So these are called zero coupon bonds. They are kind of in between the normal risk-free bonds and the risky assets. They are in between. And very important for us, because by their help, we try to adjust huge, up to 40, 50 years, huge periods of savings, of waiting for the retirement. If a person starts to work at the age of 15 or 20, that person can wait some, let me say, 45, 40 or 30 years for later getting the retirement. It's a very long time period of payment. So, and this here is a risky asset, and the risky asset has a Brownian motion and another Brownian motion. Brownian motion, other Brownian motion. And so the first Brownian motion is coming from the previous dynamics, and then we have another Brownian motion. So this is our risky asset, which we here take into account. This is our second asset. And as a third asset, we have our bank account. So this is traditional opinion about to have a risk-free asset. It's like to have a bank account, a very secure good bank. In Turkey, for example. As you know, Turkey, think about one of my home countries. You know it very well. Many people in Turkey are very kind to me and never forgot me. So I'm very thankful for my Turkish friends who are still my best friends, as they were when I was living in on the campus of the Middle East Technical University. Okay, so this is now our risk-free dynamic. And here we are. Now, we have to proceed. We consider a standard-defined contribution, DC, pension fund scheme. As we say, we now optimally decide about contributions. Now this is our term to optimally decide about contribution. So C means contribution. Employees become part of the pension fund are pay contributions during the employment period. It means during they are employees, during the time that they work. Each one of them receives an accumulated amount, X sub F, at the time of retirement. So this is the situation, and that X of sub F splits into two parts. One is X sub A converted a pension annuity. That's one thing. Converted into a pension annuity. The other is called X sub C. It's converted into life, not insurance, but insurance contract. It means we want to assure that we can have a living. We want to assure, not to insure alone, but to assure have a living. So that's why it's a life assurance contract. And that means this saved money is split into the two parts that along the age, whenever, if ever, we will become old. And you know, it's not very far. I'm 60, almost 61. So if God gives me some more years, I will have retirement. It's not a long time anymore. Okay, so, and now we proceed, and we have x sub 0, and x sub 0 is coming from the multiplication of x sub c, which is our life assurance contract, multiplied by the time of retirement. So the time of retirement, and it starts at L sub 0. This is when we are starting our being pensioners. Okay, and now I have another term, and this is benefit payment. And this is here the member dies, which can happen, of course, at some particular time t, which we don't know. His beneficiaries immediately receive a benefit payment of this amount. So, and finally, we have another term, and this looks a little bit like from option pricing. This is here, let me say, compounded x sub 0 minus a strike. This is like A, which is a kind of a strike price multiplied by the insurance time. And so this is if a member is alive at the time of his or her investment period, he or she is promised this amount. So it's a reduced compounded amount, A sub 0. And then we can discriminate, and we have RF is bigger than R sub n. So R sub n is the nominal interest rate, and our X sub f is a little bigger. So it should be so that we can cover the interest rate. So we should be able to be a little bit on the positive side, beyond of what we expect it will be our costs. We will be in competition with our nominal interest rate, but we should be here having a position which is a bit more attractive to us. And A sub R is, as I said, kind of a strike. Okay. Keeping in mind the fact that such investment plans usually last for many years after retirement, one has also take into account mortality. And when it comes to mortality, there's a famous Gompertz law. And so what we now is doing is to apply notions from insurance mathematics, from life insurance. And in Turkey, we have very good experts about insurance mathematics. And I was happy to work with some of them. It was a wonderful time. And now what we have here is in standard actuarial practice, quantity mu of t dt stands for the probability of death between the age t and t plus dt. So there is a time interval. And this term tells us about the probability of death in that particular small time period. And this term is multiplied with L of t, and L of t was the number of lives reaching the age t. So this is now that we apply a little bit from insurance mathematics. One more time, L of t denotes the number of lives that reach age of t. It's multiplied with the probability to survive. It's like what we call reliability. So it's kind of our reliability, our probability ahead for those amount of people that reached the age. Some more ET are time units. And now continue. So we have a pi of t, which denotes the proportion of fund wealths investigated in the stock. P of t denotes the proportion of pension funds invested in the adjusted, inflation-adjusted bond, and the rest.
There is no voice, Professor Weber. Professor Weber.
Professor Weber, could you check the microphone, please?
What happened?
That's okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me, professors?
Yes, that's okay. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very
Please
much.
Carry on. Carry on.
Çok naziksiniz. Never I will forget your kindness. Thank you very much.
We never forget you. Carry on.
Yeah. Çok sağ ol. Teşekkürler. Okay, so I hope everybody can hear me. So a pi of t is a piece of the cake which goes into the risky asset. B of t is the piece of the cake which goes into the inflation-adjusted bond, zero coupon bond, we say, and the rest is 1 minus pi of t minus b of t goes into the bank account. And this term is a term which we will use. I will not tell too much about the technical issues, not make the things too complicated. Now it's up to us to tell about our dynamics of the capital market. So denote by x of t the fund's wealth process, and these are our decision variables. So I of t and b of t, and of course the rest. The rest goes to the bank. And these are our decision variables, and we call them also control variables. So a professor like Professor Nejati, or a professor like Professor Ramazan, my scholars and friends, they call it control variables. And they are included here already. And you see different parts: risky asset, the bond, which is inflation corrected, and the bond from the bank. So these are our compartments. And then we can put our dynamics in. We put our stochastic dynamics into here. And then we have our optimal control problem. And at the end of the life insurance contract, fund manager is obliged to compensate the survivors by this amount, as we said. So this is the amount which the survivor receives. And then we have to ensure, I make it a little shorter, we have to ensure that y of t, so y of t is a relative x of t. It's x of t over the inflation rate. So it's a relative capital. We have to ensure this amount minus what is to be paid off is positive. Because the company or the insurance company has to ensure to be liquid. If such a company has to pay off much money, it becomes illiquid. So to ensure liquidity, y of t, capital process, has to be bigger than what it pays off. I think it's clear. These are very important issues which have to be modeled. And as I told you, Professor Ramazan, Professor Nejati, and the nice young lady, our moderator, my chair, you're my chair. This process is the relative capital process. It's capital over the inflation. So it's, so to speak, capital over a single unit of inflation. It's not, so we have to make it a little bit independent of the inflation. It has to be cleaned up with the inflation, and that happens through y of t, and capital T is our maturity time. This is our time horizon of our pension fund. And now this is here, it's like we call it a substitution. We make a substitution, a transformation of our dynamics from x to y, and then our inflation including capital process has following form. Okay, and here this is our initial capital. And now the main idea, underlying system is represented by a controlled stochastic process. the decision maker chooses control process, drive system to the desired state. And many applications have been done here in optimal control in a variety of subjects. And we hope in future our method can also be beneficial in these domains as well. Main assumptions: the decision maker blindly trusts the model he or she faces, and the exact probability law of the stochastic risk factor in the underlying model is precisely known. Okay, an important part of stochastic control, robust control theory. Why? Because we need to robustify, like in optimization, we have robust optimization. In optimal control, some variables are unknown. And in our optimal control, the research area of Professor Necati, Professor Ramazan, and their friends, particularly distributional parameters are uncertain. It's not just some particular, let me say, from mathematical modeling taken parameters are uncertain, but the distribution itself with its parameters is uncertain. And main ideas: we wish to control a system, but do not have the exact law of evolution of the state, and so on. So we are not sure about scenarios in a distributional sense, and that's why we use robust control. Here we are. This is life. Sorry to say. Of course, when I'm with you in Balakasia, I'm in very good hands. When I'm in Balakasia, I'm in very good hands. I know so well when Professor Necati, Professor Ramazan took me to the beautiful restaurant in the city center. I know very well when Professor Ramazan gave me a guided tour through the city center. So these days in Balakasia will never be forgotten. But life, as you know, can be very hard, and there are many sharks around. What we try is not just for ourselves, but for the many, many, many people in the country. Many of these people are working, and they have to pay in to retirement funds. To give them a pillow. And this is the idea of robust optimal control theory. Robust optimal control theory is a mixture between stochastic control and model selection techniques. The point is, our models are stochastic measures. So in a stochastic measure, you can just assume normal distribution. In normal distribution, you have the mean and the variance. You can have other terms, like standard deviation. It's kind of variance. Or you have skew distributions. If you have skew distributions, you have to tell how skew. Skew to the left, skew to the right. So this is what we call a model, a probability measure. This has to be modeled, and the question is, how much do we trust our model? Are we sure the model we have is the right one, or are we not trusting the model? If we do not trust the model, we have to make model space big. We have to robustify through a big uncertainty set. So the uncertainty set has to be made big enough. So we have a measure Q and we have a measure P. The question is, how much we need to deviate with our probability measure Q from the probability measure P. How big is this? And if we make changes in the measure, we have to be very careful, especially since when we have, and we have two Brownian motions, when we make changes in the model, it's possible that there is no longer a Brownian motion, because changes in a measure need not be so that we have a Brownian motion, because a Brownian motion has very particular conditions, axioms. So changes in the measure can destroy that we have a Brownian motion. That's why we have to be very careful, and that's the case in finance. We make a transformation. We make a Kirsanov transformation, get into our classical financial and Brownian motion kind of context. So, and this is our situation. We not only have the optimization of our goal, so we want to have a big utility. We want to have a big utility, but we are ephemeral. We are minimal with respect to having a kind of wrong decision about our model. So we optimize, we supremize with respect to the decision variable, the control variables, and we try to be minimal when it comes to the loss. So this term has to be optimized. It means the company, and finally we want to be liquid enough, we want to be able to fulfill our payoff duties. On the other side, we need to be so that we lose as little as possible when it comes to the assessment of our distributional assumption. So min-max, like in game theory, if Professor Ibrahim, Professor Firat, Professor Ramazan, or Professor Nejati, and the other professors, ladies and gentlemen professors, game theory, we have sub-inf, settle point problems. So here we have a settle point problem. Okay. This is what I already told you. And what it finally uses is the so-called Kupak-Leibler relative entropy. So the Kupak-Leibler entropy is kind of a regularization measure. So what we have here is, this is our regularization term. This tells us how far we deviate. How far we deviate here from our Brownian motions, and the YW is our changed Brownian motion. P tilde is our changed Brownian motion. Question is it a Brownian motion? So we have to make up the whole setting that these slightly corrupted Brownian motions are still fulfilling the Brownian motion. And this is only possible if we give chance to change our probability measure. So these are processes and Q is a measure. So we have to adjust the measure in order to still have these corrupted Brownian motions being Brownian motions with respect to an updated probability measure. Okay, that's the idea. And now,
sorry, Willy. Time is flying, so we have to be,
excuse me.
Time is flying, so we have just a few minutes left.
Okay, I will finish.
Please,
I will finish, Professor. I will finish, dear Professor. Thank you. Time is flying, it's true. So that's why. So beta is our regularization parameter. If beta is close to 0, then we are, let me say, giving chance to have a very assume our model is very trustworthy. If beta is big, opposite is the case. So this is what we did, and I would like to tell you that we did the following as well. We also assume that we compare. We compare our model with between the one with index and without index. So, and this is what I will tell you in the last minutes in our study. And you can find, I sent to the organizers my slides. We are solving it numerically with numerical approximation. And we have a decision maker and nature. So in a sense, it's game theory. The decision maker plays with nature. Max, min, decision maker, and the nature. Nature is the probability measure. Here we are, game theory. The player is you, nature, the probability measure is playing against you. And results have been found, mathematical theorems have been proved, and we assume this is our so-called utility function, which we try to optimize. And then these are our results. And now we do a discretization. It's called Euler-Naruyama scheme and Monte Carlo approach. It was done. This is our mortality rate. It means the more time proceeds, life expectancy goes down. And now this is our result. Professor Ramazan, Professor Nejati, and our lady chairperson of mine. And you see there are three curves. This one, black stock. This dotted one, slightly dotted one, is the bank account. And in the middle, it's the bond, which is the zero coupon bond with inflation. And the more beta grows, the more our zero coupon bond increases. It means more and more our zero coupon bond plays an important role. It's an important for risk measurement because we have a risk measurement against inflation. Same is true when it comes to Y, which is the initial capital. The more the initial capital grows, the more our zero coupon bond is playing an important role. So here it's and then this is what I already told you, and I will conclude now by telling you this is our value function, and this is the value function. We do not have an inflation corrected asset, and the more the time proceeds, the more y and y tilde become the same. If t, small t, goes to capital T, our time horizon, the more the two become the same. Why? Because usually r is bigger than 1, but at the end, r of t goes to 1. That means the inflation corrected term is basically the same as the one without inflation corrected term. This means the more we are coming close to retirement, the less we need to care about future impacts of the inflation. When I'm now 61 and I retire maybe at the age of 65, and if I have such a contract, I don't need to care about inflation in 20 years of time, because inflation in 20 years of time does not matter if my retirement is 4 years later, not 20 years later. Okay, so we did a study with the DC plan. We robustified. We took into account all kinds of aspects, and we did optimal control. Possible extensions is to introduce more sources of stochasticity, to calibrate results for real data, have discrete times, and consider the modeling and solution under infinite time horizons and under regime switching. These could be future studies. Here are a few references. This is classic optimal control in the field. And these are studies, especially studies done by my professors and friends from Greece, Afghanistan. Okay. And I thank you very much for your attention. One more time, Balıkesir, please keep in mind, you have a Polish man, a German man from Balıkesir and from Ankara, and from Konya, and from Erzurum, and from Dicle University, from everywhere. And you helped him a lot. It's me, your friend Willie. He thanks you so much for listening to me. It was a big piece of mathematics, but for a real life, for an important issue for every one of us and for your children. I know some of you have kids. For them, it's also important to have a good life when they are old. And that's why we care through applied mathematics and through the beautiful university in Balıkesir. So I thank you very much for your attention, dear friends. But in my culture, we say best friends, as you know. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Willie. Thanks for your kind talk. And let me ask all participants, is there any question, please?
I can send to everybody who likes the presentation, and I send the presentation also to Nejati Hoxha and the organizers who also may download it from the email and can distribute it to anybody who likes it.
Okay, I have a few questions about the robustness and the stochastic part.
Yeah, Professor.
Because the life is like that. Some part is deterministic or the robust, some part is stochastic. I mean, what about your point of view? Which part is the bigger or smaller?
Yeah, this is a matter of actually everything is stochastic. The whole life is a bit of stochastic, which is the difficulty and the beauty. The beauty in life does not come from everything being deterministic. This would be a very boring life.
Yeah, that's
instead,
right.
Instead, everything is stochastic. And now, as Professor Ramazan said, according to our preference, either we try to be very firm now to have optimal decisions about the contribution now. That means we say future is too far. We make optimal decisions now already, or we say we never mind, and in the far future we make decisions already about what we will get then and adjust on the way. And this is left to the individual person and the companies, and that's why we decided to make firm decisions now and later on, based on an optimal collected capital, to make then a good and fair decision about how to distribute the money. So it's finally left to everybody, and we included the inflation rate, which is a big issue because, as you know, in Turkey, Turkey is one of my home countries. Inflation is a big issue, and it's good to have at least in the model a certain tool in order to represent the inflation rate. So it seems a very important issue. And maybe Professor Ramazan, Professor Nejati, Professor Chairlady, in future we can study, and your team, your powerful team of Balıkesir, study on getting a sophistication, a refinement of getting further stochasticity included. As I said, it's necessary, but one cannot do it all in one day, but maybe in future could be possible.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Willy. Is there any short question, please? No? Okay.
I'm very happy. So many friends attended. I see Professor Merta, all the professors, the Daria After, all these professors attended. I'm very grateful for all of my friends.
Hi, Willy, how are you?
İyiyim. Siz nasılsınız sevgili kardeşim?
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Teşekkürler. I saw your name, I became happy. It's good to be at home because Turkey is one of my home countries, as you know.
Sure, you are at home.
Ya, teşekkürler. Çok sağ ol.
Thanks, Willy.
Çok sağ ol herkese. Sizi çok seviyorum.
Biz de size, Willy. Thanks you.
Sağ ol hocam.
And
Teşekkür
I hope we will start the next parallel section too.
Okay.
And in 3 minutes.
Yeah. Teşekkürler sevgili kardeşlerim.
Thanks for your.
Wishes to everybody.
Let's thanks to Willy, please.
Yeah.